The champagne cork hadn't even finished rolling across the polished oak floor when my screen lit up. I was still in San Francisco, wrapping up the final deliverables for the deal I'd sealed. A $300 million acquisition, patched together with enough strategic safeguards to keep Quantum Dynamics afloat for the next 5 fiscal years. My CEO, Mike, popped into the Zoom call like an unwelcome weed. That same smug half-grin he flashed when he was about to hand out a pink slip disguised as a parting gift. "Sarah," he said, his voice slicker than a Silicon Valley pitch at a venture capital brunch. "First off, congratulations. We couldn't have pulled this off without you." Truly, I already knew what was barreling toward me. I could hear it in the fake warmth of his tone. The way people speak to terminal patients they assume are too medicated to catch on. But he pressed on. "With the transition wrapped, we're streamlining the C-suite. You've played your role. Time to pass the torch to the fresh blood." My eyes didn't flicker. Not for a second. He rambled on. "I've elevated my core team," he boasted. "You should be thrilled. This is legacy in action." Legacy. That word landed like a gut punch, heavier than the axe itself. My hands stayed clasped, my jaw locked but steady. I just stared into the lens and delivered the line that would echo in his nightmares later. Savor it. Then I clicked leave meeting. The instant the Zoom pane blinked out, I didn't wail or weep. I snapped the laptop shut. The sleek, company-issued MacBook, tracked to within an inch of its life, probably set to brick itself remotely any minute now. Then I fished out the battered old Surface tablet from my bag. The one no one at Quantum knew about. The one tethered to an email I'd spun up 3 years back, linked to a discreet consulting LLC I'd tucked into the footnotes of an old contract. That's when the pivot hit. The instant my shock morphed into scalpel-sharp focus. Before we dive deeper, do me a solid. If you're the kind sneaking these tales while dodging deadlines, I spot you. Smash that subscribe and drop a like. Fuels the fire, keeps our revenge squad buzzing and billable. Back to the meat. Mike had no clue he'd just axed the woman gripping the detonator to the very windfall he was toasting. Months prior, haggling a contract refresh for our biggest Midwest client, let's dub them Vanguard Tech, I'd floated a rider to placate their prickly compliance chief. They distrusted Quantum's sprawling org chart. Too many chiefs, too much churn at the top. They craved a steady, liable anchor on the West Coast pipeline, so I stepped up, via my consulting LLC. I became that anchor, etched in legalese, nestled in a routine addendum greenlit by legal during a week our GC was out on family leave and the interim attorney was buried in M&A sludge. That rider locked Vanguard into an exclusivity pact with Quantum, but hinged on me staying the prime handler. The second I got yanked, sidelined, or canned, the deal vaporized with 30 days' notice. No fines, no fights, just poof. They inked it. I stashed it. And it moldered unread until this golden hour. I fired off a terse note, 2 syllables. Go time. The pingback landed in under a minute. Got it. Ring in 5. Mike was too wrapped up in his self-congratulation to sense the earth buckling beneath his loafers. Holed up in my San Francisco suite, I glided through the motions like a surgeon gearing for a hushed, aseptic procedure. I signed into a cloud vault dormant for 11 months, uploaded 3 files, cracked a spreadsheet logging every Quantum pact laced with my moniker. 6 in total, 5 trivial, but 1 clocked near 40% of the revenue projections propping up that $300 million buyout math. 40%. The digit glared from cell H29 like a chambered round on a lucite stand. Vindication? Not quite. Just unburdened. There's serenity in grasping your signature isn't mere filler. It's the keystone. When Mike and his yes-men strutted into Monday's scrums sporting fresh plaques and LinkedIn flexes, they'd clock that the edifice teetered on pillars they neither claimed nor comprehended. Hell, they were oblivious it even stood. But Vanguard wasn't. And by the time their opt-out sealed, The boardroom would echo with vacuum. Maybe, if fate's got a soft spot, the shade on Mike's mug when somebody finally probes who penned that stinger. It kicked off in Chicago. 3 months shy of Mike's knife twist, I was in a stuffy wool suit, crammed in a rented conference room sans AC, dripping through a quarterly huddle with Vanguard's audit crew. They were a dour lot. Picture finance ghouls clutching rainbow-tabbed binders, their fresh compliance heads sporting the vibe of a brick in boilerplate wrapping. "Quantum's got too many middlemen," he snarled, rifling our hierarchy like a hazard sheet on sketchy meds. "Accountability's a ghost when shit hits the fan." I hit him with the unflappable tilt I saved for airport security grilling if the bag's mine. "And yet," I murmured, "zero mishaps." That fell flat. Their gripes were legit. Quantum's reorgs piled up like bad poker hands. The prior guy in my seat bailed after 6 months. His predecessor ghosted mid-merge. Rumor has it he's slinging craft brews in Portland now. Bright cookie. Vanguard wanted flesh and blood, not another brass name. A signer they could bank on. So I pitched. I'd serve as the lawful point for all oversight and licensing stewardship, not under Quantum's banner, but mine. That LLC I'd birthed ages ago, post a freelance stint before corporate siren song lured me back to the cubicle crypt. I nudged the draft writer their way, crafted to blend into beige wallpaper. No flair, just the venom core. Should Sarah Jenkins be ousted from her lead oversight post, this pact dissolves at Vanguard Tech's unfettered call, penalty-free, no strings. Crisp, tidy, lethal. Their audit boss scanned it, glanced up. "This tracks." We locked the refresh 2 weeks out. Legal was drowning in buyout markups and SEC docs. No side-eye when I tabled my cut. They were knee-deep prepping ticker tape for Mike's parade float. But I dotted every I, filed the rider, double-archived, mirrored to a locked drive woven into my LLC's IRS trail, even snagged a notary stamp on the execution day. If Quantum dared dispute, they'd wade a morass of docs with my etchings in permanent marker and theirs in washable crayon. I didn't forge that rider from grudge, from foresight. Mike chased speed over substance. Seal the pact. Cash the wire. Blast the wire before scrutiny sniffed. He crewed up with echoes praising his shine. No eyes on the bedrock. So I sewed a trapdoor, subtle, profound, right at the taproot of Quantum's crown jewel account. A dead man's switch masked as red tape. And the tick he trimmed me loose? He yanked his own cord. Back in my San Francisco suite, I fixed on the chat log. Vanguard's partnerships director, Jordan, was all business. No fluff, no filler. Over quarterly steak dinners in the Loop, he'd knock back bourbon like it was tap water and loathed chit-chat with the zeal of a lifer dodging small talk. I hammered out 2 words. Go time, dispatched it, then sealed the app and perched motionless. Not nerves, lucidity. That rush when you clock someone's bluffed their stack, and you've got the joker stashed in your sleeve. They pegged me as a cog. I was the engine. They just never peeked past the chrome. Minutes ticked, Jordan's comeback slotted in, affirmed, outlining protocol. And with that whisper, Vanguard's innards hummed to life, smooth and methodical, like the onset of a muted bug-out. The sort where voices stay level, but the hatches flip to crimson. I wasn't scripting a vendetta flick, no histrionics, no scorched earth saga. I was merely repatriating the mortar I'd laid, eyeing the eaves buckle frame by frame. Mike had scrawled his fate with bubbly on his lips. He hadn't twigged the fine print would unravel it all. And by the hour his directors scanned the ledger and spied a $120 million linchpin client evaporate sans fanfare, I'd be 4 moves out. Not fleeing, not lurking, just dimming the chandelier on exit. Jordan skipped the niceties. Never his jam. The guy helmed Vanguard's big league ties like a carrier skipper. Iron timetable, ruthless accuracy, nil patience for ballast. So when he snatched up on ring 1, no shock. Just balm that the planet still spun souls like him. You held the line, he stated, flat as slate. We'll mirror it. Done. No sequel, no drama, not a peep on Mike's blunder. Jordan clocked the undercurrent. A heads-up like that drops only when boundaries snap. And Jordan was wired to cross over and never loop back to the curb. I cracked my ciphered locker, yanked the PDF tagged starkly termination-activated dissolution accord Vanguard Tech PDF, and beamed it to his secure slot. The doc was preset, auto-penned, day-stamped, notarized. Just craved his mark on the hash to kick off the 30-day unwind of our lock-in proviso. By proviso's math, it was pristine. No infraction. No infraction, 'cause the proviso had prepaid for my split. I hadn't torched a thing. I'd merely wired in a shatter an emergency for asshat overreach protocol. And damn if Mike didn't stumble it like a kid in a gallery. Jordan shot back post-haste, one glyph, marked. That spike you catch when a decade of slights fuses into a flash of pure pull. Not glee, not payback. More akin to the planet tilting true. Like the deck you've paced forever finally squares beneath your soles. 8 years, I'd shouldered that ledger like a hushed cipher. The forecasts, the horse trades, the transatlantic stamps, they all funneled through me. Yet, as the buyout crested, Mike skipped me for the seal the deal feast. Deemed it a snapshot for the incoming brass. I got to spectate him mug with the new VP of Client Ops, a Stanford bro called Tyler, who'd once mixed up socks with some soy sauce fad. Tyler made the splash page. I cooled my heels, awaiting recall on who greased the skids from shredding. But Jordan recalled. Always did. At last, fall's confab in Austin, he'd yanked me aside mid-brisket and drawled. Someday, Quantum will blank on your tab. When they do, ping me prime, not flattery. A failsafe sketched in bourbon breath. Now the lever lurched. As Quantum's glitzy new brass nursed acquisition afterglow, Jordan's solicitors were scripting the pullback writ. Not scorched turf, not inferno, just a crisp severance docketed with glacial poise. Proviso 9.2d subpart due. Upon ouster of Sarah Jenkins from oversight helm, Vanguard Tech elects to void the lock-in accord, sans fine or tether. Mike likely skimmed to Proviso 4. Figured lock-in meant dominion. Never dreamed it'd mull. It'd melt with one body's boot. But it would, and it did. I eyed the panel on my surface as the bot-driven law hook refreshed the readout. Lock-in voided, go live, 30 days post-delivery. The street'd lag on the whisper. These ripples need cycles to vein the system. But by Monday, Quantum'd roused to a bleed-out, sans suture, 'cause the sole soul who mapped the gash? That'd be me, and I'd strolled off with the gauze. I held steady, no smirk. Not then. This transcended payback. Transcended one proviso, one whale, one chief's vanity. It was framing. The load-bearing struts all gloss over till the lid caves. Mike reckoned me filler. Turns out I was the spine. And the groan they caught in that war room? Not frenzy. Just truth grinding free. The exec lounge at Quantum's SF Tower wasn't rigged for rout. It was ego's amphitheater. 12 ergonomic thrones orbiting a Raven conference slab, company sigil aglow like a VIP den for decamillionaires, and a behemoth display to hype histograms into thrillers. But by 3:07 p.m. PDT, it could have passed for a foxhole. The CFO, Greg, rough cut, no polish, mopped through his third foil. His pitch screamed panic-built. Per instant pull-out and the rippling linked packs, he rasped, timbre cracking just shy of what the figs couldn't gloss. We forecast a $180 million hit in Q3, on flat. Head swiveled. Not his way, the other. As if dodging gaze might stall the drop. Mike hunkered in shadow, feigning sage, but his collar flushed. He fiddled his links like busy-worked eclipse his zoom zap as the blazes spark. Plus, Greg plowed. The pitch to backers and buyout crew banked on holding 4 marquee cores. Vanguard bolts, 2 more in scrub to assay if their inks rode that wave. A hitch, Not for show, just to let the math lap. The IR lead piped slow. You saying the full 300 mil tab could crater? Greg skipped syllables. Thumbed next pane, a scarlet slab. 296 sounds $500,000. No wedges, no specs. Pure carve from the hype if the trio tanked or froze pending probe. Mike cracked to chime, but a dame preempted. Elena, the lone skirt on deck, edged like a razor. Who ghosted that proviso? Hush clamped. Greg hawked phlegm, stemmed from a rider in last renewal's batch. Pegged to Sarah Jenkins' consult sway. Another piped. Sarah who? Elena held. Sarah Jenkins, VP Strategic Ties. We bounced last week. Scratch that. Mike bounced last week. You could taste the vacuum suck. Mike mustered a pinched smirk. Well, rear view's crystal, yeah? Clearly unforeseen. Elena sliced. No, Mike. Rear view's crystal when the bulb fries. This? Someone ripped the cord. Another, from the buyout flank, drummed his bick like a doomsday tick. So she split clutching the ripcord, and Zilch flagged it? Greg dipped. Zilch even sniffed. No gab post that. In that void, I pictured them pawing charts for my mug. A tag they'd lobbed to sue the mark. A John Hancock they'd stacked fortunes on till it grew expendable. I missed the fray. No sweat. I nursed my sweet. Same scuffed mug, same scarred bureau, same lounge sacks seeping from the corridor as I gazed at a firmament indifferent to Mike's mess. And for the first whirl since the gears ground, I let it seep. Not payback, not prime time, just the sear of tallied worth, a sluggish blaze of equity crawling my vertebrae like dawn's twin. 'Cause they grasped now. At last. The buyout dangled, the horizon wobbled, and the lone mapmaker just watched him veer off ledge with the helm in the hold. Mike had swapped fealty for frenzy, substance for static, and now his echoes ricocheted off every bulkhead. I held the line, no grin, but I didn't break it. Mike rang at 11:18 p.m. PDT, spoofed digits, naturally. I ghosted it. 2 beats later, my attorney picked up. Mike launched with that treacly lilt he peddled to VCs over farm-to-table salads. Over-enunciated, with a canned chortle tossed in like charm was scripted. Hey, just circling back one-on-one, he cooed. Zero grudges, naturally. This curveball blindsided us all, but I'm pondering a rework. Say, a freelance gig? Loop you in loose, steady the ship while we mop the merger mess. Win-win, he pitched. My counsel, saint that she is, endured with mortician poise, then dispensed the rote riposte like a drive-through chit. Sarah Jenkins' involvement concluded, she intoned, as your severance notice spelled out. Mike forced a guffaw. Aw, come on, ease up. That's the snag with dudes like Mike. They mistake poise for pliancy, figure the muted ones crumple swift. But I'd fed him his cue. That zoom zinger, savor it. He just hadn't parsed the payload. Look, he veered, if we barrel this route, got a flag. If that rider you lodged was rigged with malice, it reads as sabotage. Deliberate wreck. Hate to drag courts in, but counsel's eyeing plays. Ah, lawsuit saber rattles. Adorable. My lawyer savored the hush a tick, then volleyed. We invite scrutiny of the accord, she purred. Sarah's consult remit was kosher, reported, docketed per SOX and state regs. The writer cleared your own law shop. You sat on it 14 months to tweak or turf. You opted idle. He wheeled once more. Babylon Optics, Trust Rehab, like we'd botched a Super Bowl ad, not imploded his $300 mil mirage on leveraged loans and hashtag hype. What Mike blanked on, what he always blanked on, I hadn't fractured squat. I'd ceased propping it. 8 years I'd fielded 3 a.m. flares from steamed marks. Rebound ties post his bro hires botched betas, Spackle fiscal craters, decode dev speak for exec patois. Cradle cross-coast inks so seals stayed crisp. I was epoxy. He never queried the snapback sans adhesive. I bypassed Mike straight. No call for it. Henceforth, every step, precise incision. No recoil. I orchestrated. And that gulf? Pivotal. No fury. No shade scheming. I let him yap. Let him whirl. Let him burrow. While he burned the next day in crisis calls and ass-cover chains, I advanced. Touched base with Vanguard's handoff squad, nailed their clock, beamed rider dupes to 2 more majors, sotto voce, snagged a feeler from a faux firm's CLO for a hush parley, even a scrawled note from Jordan. You delivered? We echoed. Mike craved me as tourniquet, but I wasn't salve. I was draftsman. And now? Drafting fresh. Sans him, sans quantum. Not spite-born, insight forged. 'Cause once you quit groveling for your gauge, the globe hushes. And like Mike, they flail in the quiet. The sit-down hit a nook where quiet fetched premium. Quartz counters, cortado in thimble cups like black market brew, and enough bootstrapped hustlers to spark a Dow uprising. I tabbed it for proximity. 4 blocks from the digs of a pack that stalked Quantum 4 years, vulture style, sniffing stumble. Lena Patel breezed in 4 early, charcoal chinos, loafers, locks like a DIY trim in a Motel John. 0 fluff. Ops chief at Nexus Labs, rival in label alone. Truth? They trimmed fat, gnashed harder, and matched Mike's puffery fatigue. She claimed the bench across, no clasp, no rictus beam, just, lemme clock it. He pulled the trigger. Axed you, skipped the fine print, eyed 118 mil bail. I dipped chin. She slammed her cortado like tequila. What delayed the drop? I delved bag, fished the dossier. Not bites, cellulose. Not 'cause cloud's iffy, but 'cause heft trumps pixels for gravitas these days. A thick craft sleeve thudded on gloss. Packed, exhaustive port plan. Not solo Vanguard, but a duo more orbiting out, one nursing a beta for a compliance gizmo we both knew Quantum's greenhorns had kludged with zip ties. Per client, hooks, snap zones, nudge cadences, auth trails, annexes. Mike blanked on. Lena leafed ream on ream, brows arching once, twice. Paused at a schematic tagged handover vectors, triptych of egress. You didn't bail, she breathed. You charted the breakout. I eased rear. No one weaves a ripcord sans fire drill. She drummed the sheaf. Slot open? Pull, I countered, and safe harbor for my book. Then she cracked beam. Not cozy, not sharkish, more like unearthing bullion in a dump. We've eyed a swallow, she said, but p'raps we cherry-picked the meat. Meanwhile, cross the bay, Quantum chased day 2 damage wrangle. Mike tapped every chit. Comms spun 3 no-news blurbs on morphing ties. Tyler quit grooming. Talent boss floated golden parachutes to any with SVP Inc., and then the SEC nudged. Probe on merger disclosures, keyed on fudged client cash flow solidity. A whistleblower dropped it, not my hand, but I'd brunched the dropper. 'Cause longevity in scaffolding spots the fissures. And Quantumed hawked slick decks touting locked 12-month rolls, blind to the if-then ink, now nuked. Whoops. By their GC's spin as filing flub, the feds roped an audit crew. And me? Unfurling a macadamia scone in my suite, tracking via privy chats from ex-peers still sworn to the fixer who eased their grind. Me. Mike clueless on the Stokers, clueless on Lena, clueless on the soft roll handoff. Clueless I'd logged every pact I grazed these 6 moons in a SOX ledger lashed to my LLC. He whacked moles in a termite trap. I wasn't Mark. I was Matchhead. And each patch they slapped? Fresh seep, 'cause this wasn't metal. This was physics riding the tilt. Mike still framed it rough sled. Hadn't clocked the sled was blueprint. The drip broke LinkedIn inaugural. A crisp, almost med post from M&A Murmur Mills. Buzz. Quantum buyout faces fed gaze. Whispers client churn, packed perils. No tags, no blaze, just chum. Then wave 2. From a B-lister VC scribe fond of apocalypse strings, SEC scrub live. Leaks peg tab on inks lashed to one bounced brass. Scalps incoming. It torched like accelerant on corner office shag. X. Channel pings. Fintech pods ablaze with stickers and caps of quantum splash. Now spoiling like deckside dairy. A gut memo leaked next. Shouldn't have, Natch. But slippage's law when your VP's eye clawbacks and a vanishing pool. Header? Stark mercy. Refreshed hazard tally. Under. Loss off miskeyed license hooks. 384.4 mm. Not maybe. Not ballpark. Locked. Memo winged 9:43 a.m. By 10:20, Quantum's fresh list stock dipped 17%. By 10:45, scribes had tags. And by 11:10, Mike squatted that raven slab where he'd once crowed on purging old guard like seasonal declutter. This round? No beam. An all-hands crisis huddle summoned. No spread, no glossy flows, just crimson binders, barristers, and sidelong jitters to spin a gale. They dove sans icebreakers. That for real? Elena queried from slab's foot, under a lock-in rider lashed to a solo LLC. Mike fidgeted, tucked in add-on docs, slipped due diligence. Who etched it? She did. Who canned her? Beat. I did. No brawls, no histrionics. Worse, that marrow chill, the seethe where blades gleam honed, counsel cushioned, mumbled blindside knots and backscan logs. But the vibe flipped. A vet trustee, silver crop, shark span, hunched. The query that'd haunt fortnights. How do you pink slip the vault keeper and miss she was the vault? Mike's retort, if any, drowned in the scribe's scrub, 'cause his walk papers were mid-draft by then. They tossed a soft landing. Bow out for side quests. Boilerplate spin. But we clocked the usher to the revolving doors he'd once mocked for lacking pep. Back in my suite, alerts hummed, a snap from an ex-junior. Mike, ashen as spackle, parked 3 seats off council, not slack, gaze vacant. Tagline, he looped, what went south? I thumbed sans pause. He did. Pores followed. Ghosts from yore. A PM in Seattle, a coder in Raleigh, a vendor wrangler from Austin who'd once quipped I was the brass who nailed her kid's recital. Each ping uniform. You held class. Kept it crisp. Voice low. And now the hush howled. Hacks orbited, but blanked my tag. I stayed shadow, in note. Bounced brass spun myth. No tweaks. No bites, 'cause Blaze needs no brief. It chars. The line dropped 2:12 a.m. No ID, just hiss for 3 ticks. Then his timbre, scraped bare. The varnish flaked. I blanked. Mike husked. Inhale snagging like slang in his craw. Had I clocked? If word hit on that rider, he faded. Not contrite, just void. The brand where a type like him chokes unsaid. I lowballed you. Figured you'd fade mute. Didn't peg you'd pack this punch post-bounce. I spun it once, then purged. Not to add. His arc closed on that org chart scrub. Mine? Fresh reel. I cracked the deck, beamed Jordan 1 shot. Grateful for the straight shot. Roll Monday. 0 pomp, 0 strut, pure trade. The kind endures. Hour out, the fresh ink set on my Nexus slate. Lena didn't chase me. Craved my blueprint, my port plays, my ties, and prime. My poise that stokes coals to blaze sans shout. Plenary sway, the fine print ran. Book hold bonus baked. Stake drops trimester. No confetti, no sparklers. Just clasp and a footer. We gauge your gauge. Noon struck. Trio majors queued under my steer. Vanguard slotted a point man, rushed a duo-year scale. Same inks quantum staked, snubbed, then muffed. Mine to helm unyoked, unsoiled. Doug's drag absent. I stowed spare. One grip, one slab. Fresh laminate on lapel. Sarah Jenkins, ED. Fusion Ops. The jet-clawed sky post-dawn. SF skyline sloughed under foil like spent tape. Through glass, I traced the spires dwindle. Same berg where Mike raised his marquee glass. Same where I, soft, slotted, gutted his gloss on least genius. He reckoned he'd plucked my plume. But you can't poach what's never pledged. All he flipped was the latch I'd long charted beyond. The buyout? Untorn. Unrigged. Just unspooled. And me with it. You're the unsung champs of the grindstone. Catch you next. Thumb subscribe, or the drip might skip your pour. The champagne cork hadn't even finished rolling across the polished oak floor when my screen lit up. Wait, no, that's the loop. But in truth, it was the end of one thread, the snag of another. Months later, Nexus wasn't just a landing. It was Launchpad. Lena didn't micromanage. She delegated the Delta. Hand me the reins on the Vanguard port, plus the 2 strays I'd teased from Quantum's fray. Build it your blueprint, she said over a cliffside hike in Big Sur, wind whipping like it approved. No boardroom bluster, just trail dust and truth. I nodded, mapping aloud. Phase 1, audit the aches. Those compliance kinks Mike's crew had papered over with NDAs and napkins. Phase 2, reknit the riders, but ironclad, no lone wolf levers. This time, the keystones shared. Vanguard's Jordan flew in for the kickoff. Not to gloat, though his bourbon toast at the ferry building hinted, but to seal the scale. You didn't just bail the boat, he drawled over Teopino's steam. You charted the fleet. We inked expansions that night. 2-year lock with opt-ups. My LLC as co-signate, but Nexus as the hull. No kill cords, just mutual moorings. Word rippled back to the Valley grapevine. Ex-quantum whispers hit my inbox. Heard you're poaching the pond. Mike's melting down in Palo Alto, hawking headhunts to anyone who'll bite. I archived without reply. Not salt and wounds, just forward. But echoes lingered. A SEC dropped 6 weeks out. Quantum's tab trimmed to salvage scraps. Mike's personal pursuits a polite pink slip. The acquirers clawed back chunks, citing material omissions. Funny how oversight flips to fraud when the figs don't fib. Tyler, the bro VP, landed a gig at a flailing fintech, peddling the same socks gaffes he'd bungled before. Kellen? Wait, Tyler. Yeah. Circled back to campus recruiting, irony's full circle. Elena, the board blade? She pinged once. If Nexus ever needs a contrarian, holler. I filed it under allies, not bridges burned, just ones I chose not to cross back. Nexus hummed different. Lean crews, no ego swells. Lena's weekly walks, not check-ins, but brainstorms. What if we flipped the rider model? She'd probe over kale bowls in the mission. Client vetoes on churn, not just exits. I sketched it that afternoon. A pact where marks hold equity stubs, tied to uptime, not uptime alone. Tested on a pilot with a Detroit auto tier. Clean, caught a 15% uplift in stick. Jordan caught wind, looped in Vanguard for beta. You're not fixing brakes, he texted. You're building bends. By Q4, we'd snagged 2 more from Quantum's bleed. A Seattle cloud coupe and an Austin AdTech upstart, both spooked by the headlines. Me? I traded sweet isolation for a corner perch overlooking the bay, fog rolling like fresh starts. No chipped mugs, just a sleek pour-over rig, grinding beans at dawn. The voicemail from Mike? Long deleted, but its ghost? Fuel. Not for grudge, but grind. I'd wake to pings from Tokyo vendors, Berlin betas, all flowing sans the old chokeholds. One night, post a Nexus all hands where Lena name-checked my port as the anchor we didn't know we needed, I cracked a rare smile. Not triumph. Equilibrium. The kind where value isn't begged. It's baseline. Quantum? A cautionary ticker now. Valley lore. The $300 mil mirage that popped on a single signature's shade. They rebranded post-scrap, slimmed to QD light, chasing micro deals to dodge the ghosts. Mike surfaced in a podcast, voice oiled anew. Lessons in hubris, folks. Talent's the true IP. Listeners rolled eyes. I hit skip. His arc? Closed. Mine unfolded. ED by title, architect by trade. And every clause I penned now? Forged for flight, not fall. Because once you map your own moorings, no one's yanking the chain.